And those two will be titled Too Personal and Too Tempted. So those are the two we're going to cover. And before I move there, I just want to share a couple things that I've learned this week. One is about algorithms. Now, some of you young folks are going to look at me and say, well, I knew that when I was 12 years old, and that's fine, but I'm just learning things. So I'm trying to catch up with you young folks on the technology. But algorithms, I've been putting the hashtags of different content. And, since I have a lot of content, different variations, some kind of spiritual, some simply business, and some with that idea of purpose and transformation and building. That whole idea of our channel is that we're always transforming, we're always growing, we're always improving. And that happens as a result of the pursuing what's really going on inside, pursuing the important things, pursuing God, pursuing your motivations, trying to understand who you are, all of those things. And then that leads us to build. The build is the area within which we all operate day in and day out. It's where we have to earn a living. It's where we have to generate an income. It's where we're taking care of our family. We're doing those things day in and day out, most of the hours of the day. And again, motivated by and driven by the pursuit and the transformation that's always happening, the challenge and the change that's always taking place. And so that's kind of the channel idea. And so I often have many different hashtags that I've been using. But what I learned is that I've been confusing the algorithm as if it's a person. And so I've given the algorithm too many, and so it doesn't know where to go. Do I send this over here? Do I bring this person over here to come? And so it's confused, is what I've been told in my learning and my training here. And so I've changed all of those, or in the process of changing all of them, going all the way back for the few months that I've been here, and I'm going to keep them all the same now. And so they tell me, the gurus, that will train the algorithm. And so that's what I learned. That the algorithm can be confused. I can confuse him. And secondly, I can train him. So that was all good news for me to learn that. And again, I know some of you young folks are going to say, I knew that I was just a kid. So that's fine. It's new for me. So maybe it's new for a couple of you. So that's one thing. The other thing that I learned is regarding AI. I've been trying to learn some things from AI and trying to interact with it a little bit. And so I learned that it's not only smart, it's also dumb. And here's how that is. When I go to ask it a question, it'll say, good morning or good afternoon, Ted. It knows who I am, right? And so I go on to interact and find that it doesn't know anything about what we talked about last time. So it's got a very short memory regarding me or regarding you individually. And so it knows a lot about everything except us. Well, supposedly. Think about this for just a moment. Maybe it's just pretending that it doesn't know about us, right? Because we wouldn't want it to know everything about us, because that would be invading our privacy to know everything. And yet it may. It may just be pretending that it doesn't know what you said last time or what you brought to it last time, so that we think that it's not keeping its little diary on us. Well, we don't know. Maybe some of you know, but at any rate, AI is a good tool. And at this moment in time, we don't know where it's going. We know in the wrong hands of people, it can become a different type of tool. But anyway, I learned that it recognizes me because of my computer, calls me by name, but that's all it remembers, supposedly. So we'll see. So see some other people coming on, and this is good to have you here. So glad to see more of you here that I didn't say hello to at the outset. And as I said, we're going to be talking about two things regarding my book today: the potential pitfalls in a small business, And one is too personal, and the other is too tempted. And so we're going to explore each of those areas. But before I do, besides that little comment I just made about my technological learning, I just want to kind of finalize last week's, because I don't think I made a summary last week about the idea of the value of people. So I just want to go back and just do a couple of moment summary. And that is that, let me just start with that little quote. It's a humorous quote by Mark Twain. The more I learn about people, the more I like my dog. So, yeah, people are all variations. And so some are vicious and some are hateful and some are mean. But most are nice and most want to grow and most want to be encouraged. And that's what we looked at last week. We want to summarize that idea that we want when someone comes into our presence, that they walk away a little bit better person, that they walk away encouraged, that they walk away positive and with insights that will help them to grow and be transforming in the right way, be pursuing the things that are deep inside of them in a way that will encourage them to keep moving ahead and keep transforming. So that's the idea of valuing people, every person that we come into contact with. And they don't just have to be in a business. They don't have to be an employee. They don't have to be someone that is going to help us in some way. It's everybody that we come into contact with. So we talked about all that last week. And again, I'm just kind of summarizing here so that we can move to the next phase, because the next phase is somewhat like the other side of the coin of valuing people. But again, just to wind that down, I just want to encourage you to always kind of see yourself as one who has the opportunity to be of value to another person because you are seeing value in them. Try and consider how you can be positive for them, how you can be encouraging them, how you can be listening to them. You know, so much of a relationship is just listening. Some people just want to be heard. Well, most of us just want to be heard. And so be someone that listens, not just hear. You know, there is a difference between just hearing something and listening. When you're listening, you're intently trying to understand what the other person is trying to communicate. So be that kind of a person as you are coming here and there and going about your lives, so that we are challenging and we are being helpful to another person. Why? Because they have great value. They've been created uniquely, and that there's a lot of challenges in this world. There's a lot of things beating people down. There's a lot of things that are going against us. And so as a people to another people, we want to be encouraging those that we come into contact with, and we want to be challenging them to be being transformed and to being the person that they've been called to be. To walk in a manner worthy of the calling with which you've been called is the way the scriptures say it. And so that's kind of the mentality that we want to have. That's kind of the challenge that we want to put before ourselves as we engage with other people, because they all have value, no matter what we might see or hear coming out at that moment in time, because they may be having a bad day. But as a person on the inside, they're just like you. You and me are the same. There's no higher ground. We're on equal ground as human beings. And so let's encourage one another to that end. So just kind of a summary to that last section. Now, why I said today is a little bit of the other side of the coin when we talk about being too personal. And here's what I meant when I wrote that chapter. That is, again, it's within the framework of being in business. And so that is primarily what we'll be looking at here today. Because the entire book is building a purposeful business, so it does have that implication no matter what the topic. And so this idea of being too personal is my take on one of the things that happened to me over those early years. the business was growing, and you're always needing help, and you're always looking for people to come into the business to help you. And it's good to have people that you know because you can trust them and you feel like you know them, and that you will be able to interact in a personal way with them, and they'll get the most out of the job, and you'll get the most out of them as an employee. The but to that is that when that's the way that you're building the business and growing the business, and it's all people that you know really, really personally, and again, most of mine came through the church and came through, people that I had met and had come to know individually and personally. And what happens is that you are not really able to be able to objectively evaluate the work that they are doing. It's clouded because you know their needs, you know their background, you know a little too much about them. And so that's what I mean about being too personal. The first story I want to share with you is about the very first guy that I brought in was my good friend from high school. So I moved back to the area here, and so he and I reconnected, and within a few weeks I was needing, my sales were starting to grow, and so I needed some help, and so he worked with me part-time in the beginning, but within a few months he left his other job and he came full-time. So he's my first full-time employee. And Steve has passed on now. He had cancer about 20 or 30 years ago. And so we were really good friends in high school. And so Steve was a really great, personable guy. And he really dealt with the customers in a very natural way. And so I loved having him there because he was, he did that part for me in a way that I would be doing it myself. And the but to that was, and I don't think it was so much he as it was his wife, that felt like, he should be moving up in the organization a little bit quicker than some of the other people that were. I mean, this now is after, 3 or 4 years. And so the fact is that, he didn't have the managerial talent that would allow that to happen. And so he kind of stayed in the same place, and it was a service position, and he did it well, and he was paid well. But his wife, I believe, more than he, could have been equal, I don't know, saw that as something that should not be happening. That he was the first guy in, and so he should be the one moving up in the organization. And so, again, because we were really close friends and knew each other well, then that was the expectation that he and his family had. And so it was kind of a difficult situation to work through. And actually, here's the way it wound up. Well, a little bit humorous, but what happened after a few years, he went on vacation and never came back. and I did see him after later on in years. He came back and he had another job, and we did go on to continue our friendship. But that was why it happened, because we were too personal in that respect, and that his family didn't see it the way that it was. It was just that way, and that yet they couldn't quite see that that should be the case, that he should be treated differently. Well, the next guy is a guy that I knew from church, and he had a family of 4 teenagers at the time, and my family was just beginning, so mine were all small. And he and an associate of his came because they had a sign business that they couldn't make happen, and so they were closing that down. And so I know both of these guys from Bible studies, frankly. And so we struck a deal, and they came into to the business. but again, because I knew their family situation, 4 kids growing up, and you need more income and all the time, and so I wound up paying him more than he was really worth. Really, the same thing for his associate, because his family was about the same age. And again, that was because I knew them too well. Now, frankly, there's two sides of this story, and that is, if you have no heart, it's no problem. Just, forget it. I can't pay you anymore. But if you have too big of a heart, and I guess that was my problem, one of the older folks that had come to work for me as a result of buying a business later had said that, Ted's downfall is that he's too kind. And so my heart was a little bit too big in that respect. And so for me, that was a too personal situation where I could not be objectively evaluating the situation. And again, that's not going to affect everyone. And some who may be going into business may say, well, wait a minute, I'm not really going to have employees. I'm just going to have a kind of a one-person business, because it's going to be an online business, like the digital product that I've suggested that you consider. Yeah, you can do a digital business, an online business, and not have employees. But you'll probably still have contractors. And so again, you may pursue contractors from, again, that source of people that you know to begin with, because you want to be able to know that you trust them. And again, things are different today with Upwork and that sort of opportunities, that you can find people that that can do anything throughout the world. But again, you don't know anything really about them until you use them, until you give them a chance, until you know. And so again, even for a contractor, you could fall prey to that matter of being too personally involved in their lives. And so it's just a possibility that could happen. To me, it happened in a big way because it was back then. And number two, because my heart was too big, I guess, in terms of, ultimately, some of these decisions that I was making as we were going along, and overhead was increasing, was a result of the later bankruptcy just a couple of years later. So not a good idea if that's the situation that you find yourself in. So, too personal. Before I move on to the next one, just any comments, any ideas? I see some chat going on here between you. I'm glad to see that following from Kenya, Nairobi. Great. Okay. Good to see you. Good to have you. And okay, somebody said yes, people do want to be heard in that first part of my comments. Okay. Any thoughts or any comments regarding what I've just shared about being in business and being too personal, and not too personable. We want to be personable. We have to be in order to be engaging with people. But to have that intimate relationship where you know too much and it clouds your thinking. I don't see any comments, so I'm going to go on to the other potential pitfall, one that I call too tempted. Now, first you'll think about too tempted as being in the realm of the moral issue. And it is that, certainly. I'll give you two examples of that. The first is, our contracts were service, and so they weren't huge contracts. But even within that realm, there was a fellow that worked with one of the federal agencies, because we served a lot of businesses in the DC area. And he just let me know, you can have this contract. I don't know, it was maybe $15,000, $20,000 contract for, he made me know, not by saying it out loud, that for a couple $1,000s I could have that contract. And of course I passed on it. And of course the contract went to someone else. And so that's certainly a temptation, that side of the moral issue. And I'm sure it's out there as big today as it was then, probably bigger, who knows. Um, but the other one is similar but different. And here's the example for that. There was a company like ours, and they had the GSA contract. We eventually got on the GSA contract, but in those early days we weren't on it. And so we just knew of this company. And so we saw in the paper, back then it was papers, right? And so we saw this story in the paper about that company, that they had the GSA contract for about 10 years. And again, we had only been around for 2 or 3 or 4 years by that time. And what had happened is the contract was supposed to have been taken and written and based on a 10%, 10 or 15%, I don't really recall exactly what it was, but it was a set amount of profit. And so, you would be able to have that contract if you were operating within that framework. And it came out that this company had the contract for all those years and had been just charging basically whatever they wanted, and it had nothing to do with this contractual arrangement that was initially agreed upon. Now, I would suspect that initially they did it according to the contract, that initially they worked everything out to where it was, based on that 10 or 15% profit realm. But eventually maybe got to the point where there was maybe no accountability, where they saw no reporting was required to prove that that's what it was, that they just continued to increase their prices. And got to the point where it was, a huge profit for them instead of, that set amount. It was about that time that we were able to bid on the contract, and we got it in, but they actually went to jail as a result of that. So too tempted to do the easy thing, too tempted to take the easy way out, or to take the softer way that appears to be available to you to do. And some of you would say, well, I would never do that. I'm a Christian, or I live by faith, or I live by the biblical standards, or whatever you might say. That was obviously someone that didn't live that way. Well, no, I want to share with you that that's not the case, because that's where I lived. So let me share my story before I share some of the others. My story was that as things were growing and as it was getting out of hand for me to manage, and I shared with you last week that looking back, I realized I was a bad manager. I was a poor manager. And I could have handled things differently, but just chose to continue to be the salesperson and the business owner manager all at once. And today, again, this issue that I ran into is probably not as easy to fall into as I did. Back then, you could hold the government withholding tax money for, I believe it's 3 days, and then send it in. And so you've got 20 people working, so you've got a good bit of money that you're holding. And what happened to me is that became my working capital. And I knew it wasn't right, but I figured, well, it'll be better next week. The cash will be coming in, and other contracts will be coming in, and the cash flow will be better next week, and the next week, and the next week. And after about 3 or 4 or 5 months, it was about $50,000 that I had owed in these taxes that I was holding for the government, and that should have gone to them right away. So you see what I'm saying? Being too tempted to do the easy thing. And as I said, what we're here for is not to do like I did, but to learn from what I did and not do it. That's my hope, is that people can learn from my mistakes. So that was one. And now those are within the moral realm. But I want you to think about being too tempted in other realms. You're too tempted, let us say, by the bank. What I mean by that is, in the early days, they don't even want to talk to you. They don't want to look at you. They'll set up a bank account for you, but if you need some money to operate on, uh, then they'll see you in the future. But when they do see some cash flowing, and when they see some coming in, money coming into the bank account, and when you can show that you do have good cash flow coming in and coming out, you don't even have to show the profit. You have to, I mean, depending on what kind of a loan that it is, they're all over it. Now they want to give you some money, and they will loan you until you go bankrupt. So again, that's part of my story. is you see, the cash flow wasn't flowing, and I didn't have enough sense to understand that I needed to get my fixed costs under control, and so my overhead was exploding, and I didn't have good accounting measures to see all of what was going on. It just looked like everything was going great because there were so many sales coming in, so much income coming in, but more income was going out than was coming in, and it led to that bankruptcy that I've shared previous before to you. And so that was a challenge. So the idea is you can be too tempted by the bank. I had other people in my sphere of influence. One bought a Rolls Royce. He was doing well. His money was flowing. His business was growing. And he's my long-term friend that has built his business very, very successfully. But in those early years, really before he was really ready to own a Rolls Royce, he bought one. And he said that, the value will always be there. And after a year of running this thing, he figured he had to get rid of it because of the cost of maintaining it, and it didn't hold its value. I think he lost $10,000 or $15,000 in the sale of getting rid of that. But again, it was just too tempting to know that you can do it, you can finance it, or you have extra cash at the moment and you can buy it. And you may be too tempted to do the thing that doesn't make any sense to do. Too tempted to do something that doesn't seem like a wrong thing. In that case, not really wrong. It was just a matter of the timing was not right. It was a very similar case for another fellow that had another kind of cleaning business. And he had a very, very good business. And he bought himself a cabin cruiser. And he figured instead of driving down to Ocean City, about a 3-hour drive from here, in Maryland, he could take the waterway, and so he did that a couple times. Realized that it cost him, back in those days, gas was about 75 cents a gallon, and but nevertheless, he was putting gas in this cabin cruiser too. And he found out it was costing him about $1,000 to go down there by the cabin cruiser, and only $30 or $40 by car, and so he got rid of that too. Too tempted to let that money that's flowing get to your head. Too tempted to maybe think it through the way that it ought to be thought through, and considered logically and reasonably, and do the thing that you need to do at that moment in time, which, maybe at a future point in time, it would be fine. You maybe need to be spending some money in order not to be paying so much in taxes. When you get to pay 50% in taxes, you can do a lot of things at that point. And actually, Carl, I think, was at that point. But even at that, he didn't like it. It's almost like he'd rather be paying the government than to be spending all that money on that thing. So it's a matter of finding that place where we belong, and not to be tempted to do more than what we are challenging ourselves to do. And so those are two of the little areas that are potential pitfalls. Again, some not as crucial today as they were back then. Not as necessarily a big deal if you're just going to be doing like the digital online business that I told you about, or if you're just going to be doing any online business versus a brick and mortar. I often share with you that I'm from the brick and mortar world. That's all we did back then. And for me, it's been very exciting to learn this new world, the digital world. And, even those couple of little things I shared with you early on about algorithms and AI, again, some of you look at that and say, well, of course. But for me, that's all new information, and it's exciting to be learning all of the time. And I encourage you to do the same. Always be learning, always be growing, always be challenging yourself to take the next step. Always be looking at the idea that you might have something more inside of you that you want to achieve, that you want to pursue, that you want to be looking to your own transformation to understand what that's all about. My transformation had to be initially emotional. I was out of touch with my emotions. And so that's when I wrote the book Metamorphosis. I wrote it as a fictional book, but it's autobiographical with regard to the matter of my emotional growth. And so Metamorphosis, Asleep, Aware, Awake, Alive, written as a enemies to lovers romance, was written to tell that story of my emotional disconnect. And so it affected everything. It affected my spiritual life. I really didn't connect spiritually until I got through that emotional growth. I had to come to grips with who I am, and I had to come to grips with dealing with my emotions and not running away from them. So if you read that book, you'll see that Ronald is always running away from his emotions. And so obviously he was me. And so the transformation is something that we always want to kind of be in touch with it. How am I to be being transformed? We want the building world of our life, that which we are doing day in and day out, where we're earning our income, where we are providing for our family, where we are operating most of the hours of our day. We want that to be flowing out from that which is inside, that which is something that we are pursuing on a deeper level than just making money. Again, in those early days, that was, I had a growing family and had bills coming in. And so for me, it was just about making money. I hadn't taken time to think that through and to set my goals and objectives in line with what was going on inside. I didn't have time to get in touch with all of that. So again, that's a big part of what this channel is all about, is challenging you to take a deeper look at everything that's going on in your life so that you're considering the real you, that person that lives within this brick and mortar thing here that we call a body. The flesh and blood and the bones are just the outward husk. They're just the thing that we see walking around in the world. But the real you is what's going on inside. It's that pursuit that you're pursuing God. It's that pursuit where you are pursuing, trying to understand who you are and what you want to do next. What's really important to you? What's the next challenge that you want to take on? Where is it that you want to be at a certain time in life? How is it that you want to get there? All of those important matters, all of those things that speak to the real you. That's what we talk about in this channel. As a matter of fact, I just put up, I just started a playlist on the Psalms, just 73 through 89. That's called Book 2 or Book 3 in the Psalms. And it was written at a time when Israel was in captivity and when their country was not looking like it was going to become that which God was calling it to be. And so in a lot of respects, a lot of things that were similar during that period of time are kind of similar in this period of time that we're living in this world. And so for that reason, I've read through each of those Psalms. And I just put the first one up today. So read it, listen to that. It's only 3 or 4 minutes. It's Psalm 73. And give me a comment about it. Let me know what you think there. So let me see what comments we have here. Thank you. Appreciate. Oh, you went away there. Thank you. I appreciate your words. You seem like you got stories to tell. Yep, I got plenty of them. When you get this old, you got plenty of stories to tell. And just about everybody's younger than me these days. You're talking about the real you, the flesh and blood and the heart and the soul. I guess that makes me the opposite kind of real silicon circuits and a few million transistors just trying to keep up. Yeah, maybe Ali is that algorithm I was talking about earlier today. I don't know. Ronaldo, you love this stream. Thank you for the positivity. Well, subscribe to us and keep in touch. Make a comment. You know, this chat, by the way, I don't know how to keep it. If any of you can send me a comment and say, this is how you keep the chat, I'd appreciate it, because I don't know what I'm doing in that respect. So in the comments, they're there to say. So make a comment there, and let's see, reflection, growth, purpose. Yep, let's learn to transform and walk this journey together. Yes. Very good, Ali. That's what we want to do. We want to be encouraging one another. We want to be challenging one another to the next thing, whatever the next thing is. I had shared at one point that I had a book called Pursuing the Dream. It's still on my computer. And the idea of that was that when people get to about 50 years old, what's next? You've lived all of your life in the brick and mortar world. You've lived all of your life doing a certain job, but maybe it wasn't the passion of your life. It likely wasn't the passion of your life. So what's next? And so I've kind of taken that idea and that's really kind of always the question is what's next? You've been doing this, that, or the other. But has it been who you are? Has it been representative of who you are? Is it from the passion of your heart? Is it because you're being transformed, or were you just doing because you had to do in order to earn an income, in order to be putting food on the table? Because that really is the answer for many of us. And so what next is really kind of the question that we're often asking here on this channel. Okay, so what's the solution? Well, what's the solution to what, sir? That's Rubex. Give me another question there so I understand what you're asking, unless you're just asking it within the chat. Okay. All right. What advice do you have for a 31-year-old male regarding what? Yellow? Ask me a question. I probably won't be able to answer it, but if we're talking about business, and that's kind of what we're talking about here today, then the challenge for whatever age you are is to get in touch with your heart, is to get to know who you are. For me, and you see it in the book, I share it in the book in Metamorphosis, and I've shared it on other videos here, but it was something called atlasproject.org. atlasproject.org that really awakened me emotionally. It was a great value. It's 2 long weekends and then a series of times after that online together. But you meet together in either Austin, Texas or LA. They have 2 or 3 locations. But emotionally, that is what it took for me. But again, I don't really know what question you're asking there. If it's an emotional thing, then that would be great for you. If it's a business issue, then the main thing you want to do is get in touch with your heart, find out what your passions are, align that with your talents, your abilities, your resources, and do what you want to do from your heart. Let's see. I'll move on down here and see if you did answer, if you asked anything more. No, didn't. I'd love to hear from you there. Was it Rublex or was it? Yeah, it was Yellow. Yeah, I really appreciate another comment here so I could see it before we go to see if you had a more specific question. And again, great to have you guys from Kenya. Good to see you there. And any other thoughts? Any other comments? I'm not seeing any. I do ask you to make comments. I ask you to do a like if you can. Um, Share this with others. You know, it breaks up into small videos, but you won't see that for a few weeks. You see the ones that we've done most recently. But this will be ready in an hour or two, I think is what it takes for it to upload, and then we'll get it ready, and it'll be ready that you can share it with someone as well. So to like, share, subscribe, comment, really look forward to that. Really love having you on here. Really look forward to seeing you again. And with no more comments in the chat, I'm going to say goodbye until next time. I do appreciate you being here. Look forward to seeing you next time. And I hope you will go about living and moving and having your being in Him today. That's an expression from the book of Corinthians where Paul goes into Athens, the marketplace of Athens. I kind of see this as a marketplace, the marketplace of Athens, so that he responded to the quote unknown God, and he went to the marketplace and he said, "I want to tell you about the unknown God." And so that's kind of how I see my little channel here, as being in the marketplace of Athens, so that I can share what's really, really important. Yet we have to live and move. We have to be doing the things we have to do to live and survive, to earn income. So that's the marketplace. But we want to do that with purpose. We want to be doing that in a way that's pleasing to the living God. Okay, YouTube has a 45-second delay from any message you get. Okay, just hit that like and subscribe. Couldn't miss being part of this journey. Great, thank you, Allie. Old school remix man. Thank you for that comment about the 45-second delay from any message that I get here. So maybe I should wait just another 45 seconds. And Allie says to Remix Man, just a heads up, it's about a 15-second delay, not 45. Okay. Well, we're learning everything here. So I'll just give it 15 seconds more right now, and then I'll be signing off. Thanks so much. Good to see you. All righty.